Hello. This video is what I think about the pole shift. I just saw a video by Braden called Awakening to Zero Point. It's a 22-part video. Probably the best video I've ever seen. I really enjoyed it. He's a geologist, and he talks about the pole shift. I guess he's a big scholar, too. I guess, basically, we're going to have a pole shift where the North Pole is going to be the South Pole and the South Pole is going to be the North Pole. So our compasses are going to point to the south. But not only that, the sun's going to start to rise on the east, set in the west. So basically, the story behind that is that we've always switched our poles. We've had North Pole for millions of years, and we've had South Pole for millions of years. And he didn't mention this in this video, but I think I may have heard someplace else that you're at a North Pole and then you're at a South Pole for lesser and lesser amount of time. And we know that because when you look at the layers of igneous rock, of granite and stuff, there's pieces of iron in there, and we know when that stuff was created because of the geologists, and you know which direction it was pointing. You know where the pole was when that rock froze, because all of the iron is kind of pointing, moving towards a direction. So then you'd have, this layer where it's all pointing to the north, and then all of a sudden it's pointing to the south. And I think he was saying that they're thinking that our last pole shift was as little far back ago as like 1500 BC. I do remember myself reading in a passage in the Bible, back in the days when the sun rose in the east and set, or rose in the west and set in the east. But the curious thing about that is not only the Bible, but Hopis actually have the same myth, and not only that myth, but the myth that the moon or the sun rose in the west. It was rising in the west, and then it set in the east, and then it rose in the east and set in the west. And there's actually a similar myth about that somewhere in Asia about that happening. So if we were to believe our myths and believe the consistencies of all of the myths all over the world, then we'd have to believe that, well, yes, we do have pole shifts. There was a pole shift in recorded history not so long ago, and when a pole shift happens, the actual rotation of the Earth changes. So that's very interesting stuff. Our pole, our magnetic north, is moving north very rapidly. I don't know the exact numbers. And this wasn't in Greg Braden's book video, but I remember I read like an internet a few years ago. We did have, since we have started recording where the North Pole was maybe 100 years ago, the North Pole was in the south of, the southwest of Alaska. And then all of a sudden the North Pole started going north. And then it started going north even faster. And I think, until it starts going north like 75 miles a year, which is racing towards the North Pole. And the idea is when it gets to the North Pole, that's when it's going to flip and go south again, which is going to cause some, it's going to cause major changes in the Earth, because the whole El Nino and all the path of the world weather patterns are going to reverse and change. So there's going to be lots of tidal waves and storms, and and the path of storms is going to change, and it could even cause earthquakes, and maybe even big earthquakes that could do a lot of change, cause a lot of change in the world. Depending on how, also, if you believe that our minds actually create the weather and the way the Earth works, if we're all peaceful, then those changes can be very subtle. But if we're not, then they can be catastrophic. But anyway, the idea behind that is that, or a good illustration that I thought was interesting with that is, if you get an iron bar and you wrap a steel wire around it, and then you charge that steel wire from the bottom so that the electrons are passing up, then this iron bar that's being surrounded by the steel cable is going to become magnetically charged with a positive and a negative. And if you take your charger off of the bottom part of the coil, put it on the top part of the coil so that the electrons move in the other direction, then the iron bar switches its polarity. And so basically that's how the magnetic field of the Earth works, is because of this passage of electrons. And the way the passage of electrons works in the Earth is through movement. Like the electrons don't actually move through the rock, but the rock itself is moving. Because the Earth spins around in every 24 hours, the Earth spins around. But the core takes longer than 24 hours to spin around. I don't know how long it takes, but it doesn't spin around as fast as the outside of the Earth. So it's kind of like having a milkshake and then having a spoon around the outside of the glass and spinning it around, and then you can see the little whirlpool in the middle. And in the middle, it's not spinning quite as fast. On the outside, it's spinning faster. So then you have this torsion field. And so that movement itself represents the coil going around the central iron bar, which magnetizes it because the core of the Earth is iron. So the core of the Earth is here as iron spinning around slowly, and then you have something else, these rocks, these igneous rocks that are very conductive, spinning around even faster, causing the magnetism of the Earth, and with the North Pole and the South Pole, and then that magnetic line goes way out into space, comes back down, and then comes back in like a big donut. And Braden, this guy, says that according to the National Bureau of Standards in Boulder, Colorado, apparently, and I guess they don't tell us, some kind of conspiracy or something, I don't know, maybe Greg Braden's lying, I don't know, but apparently our days are starting to get shorter. Now why National Bureau of Standards wouldn't actually tell us that, maybe they just, it's just another one of those conspiracies or something, or maybe it's not true, I don't know. I'm just sharing what he says because I think it's interesting stuff. I'm not calling NBS people liars, but so it's yeah. Apparently, like every 14 years, you if you don't manually adjust the clock, then you're going to be stuck. Like you're going to have like a 12-hour, like 12 noon would actually be 12 midnight. Like that's how quickly the days are actually getting shorter. So apparently, I mean, we haven't noticed that yet with our watches. You would think that we would notice that with our watches, and that's my question to the great Braden. You know, why if the days are really getting shorter like that, why aren't we noticing with our watches? Well, if what he says is true, eventually we'll have to get to the point where we will notice it with our watches, that the days are actually getting longer. And I guess when the Earth stops rotating, that's when the pole shift will happen, and then there will be some kind of change in the rotation of the inside of the Earth, and then the Earth will end up rotating in another direction. So, like, he didn't explain any more about how that happened, so maybe he doesn't understand, or maybe he thinks we're too stupid to understand, or he forgot, or maybe he's just bullshit, I don't know, but it's kind of interesting. Oh no, 10 minutes have gone by. This is going to have to be part 1, because I think I still have more stuff to say. Okay.